Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk 20s. Before we dive into the episode, I just wanted to give a little intro to it. For this episode, we interviewed a friend from high school, Jerrid, and the topic for this week was you versus you, kind of talking about the internal battles that we can have with ourselves, why people in their 20s beat themselves up so much. Does society have a role in that? What role does self-talk have to do with you versus you? And what's the hardest thing overcoming a you versus you situation? So I think there's a lot of relatable content in this one. We interviewed Jerrid, but you also hear the usual three, Connor, GT, and myself, kind of our input as well. But a lot of great questions asked, a lot of great answers and explanations. And I think you guys will enjoy this one. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys had a wonderful week with your family and loved ones. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk 20s. Back again with the boys, and we have a guest this week. We're going to try to handle four of us at the same time. Good luck to all of you. We'll see how this goes, but for this episode with a guest, it's going to be more of an interview style, talking with Jerrid and seeing his POV on the specific topic, which happens to be you versus you. So without further ado, Jerrid, what's going on, man? How are we doing today?
I'm fantastic. I'm
good, man. Hell yeah. For people who don't know Jerrid, he went to high school with Connor and I, and we were all in band together. And to see this kid now, God, when's the last time I actually physically saw him? Like 4 years ago, probably 5 years ago. Yeah, probably like 5 years ago, honestly. So I'm glad to have you on here, man. I know you've listened to some of the podcasts, and I appreciate the support. And I know you're really excited to dive into this week's topic here. So. Let's do it, fellas. Connor and GT, how are we doing over there? I'm not going to forget about you guys.
Hey, no, you're good, man. Put us on the afterburners. It's okay. We'll be on here.
Come on, man. I gotta tailor to the guests here. So,
it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, don't be so butthurt.
These are all jokes. Everybody stop being so tight. Like, everybody stop being one of these.
Whoa. Editing that out. That's sexist.
Editing that out.
All right, Jerrid, the topic, you versus you. I kind of want to start it off with what does this topic mean to you? What are your thoughts on this?
So you versus you, I was like, when you texted me this, I was like, okay, I got some really good questions for this. But you versus you is basically I'm gonna put this as if I were the one like talking to me. Yeah. It was like, I feel like there's your conscious, your subconscious. I was like, there's a continuous battle. I was like, there's negatives, there's positives. I was like, at the end of the day, it's you. I was like, you're going to go through battles every single day. I was like, that's why it's called you versus you.
That's right. That's right, man. It's something that it's not even in your 20s, right? You start that out as a teenager, trying to find who you are as yourself. You're trying to fit in with all the kids in middle school and high school and shit. And God, it doesn't stop. College, post-college, everything. That's just a part of life. Trying to figure out who you are.
I mean, I dropped out of college.
It's a continuous. Yeah, it's
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
hey, I mean, some of the richest people in the world are college dropouts.
That's right.
I only did my freshman year. I was like,
successful
university to get my cybersecurity degree, dropped out, and then I went to the Midwest to become a tower climber, and now I climb towers for a living.
Hey,
dude, they make bank. Have you seen what they make?
That's really cool, man.
That's fucking dope. That's dope, bro.
Good for you, dude.
Good for you, man. Let's get into this first question here that I got for you. Jerrid, I'm going to start it deep right off the bat here, okay? What is your biggest current battle of you versus you?
My current battle is definitely my self-doubt. I was like, my mentality, I will definitely like go into phases throughout the day. And I was like, I'll just doubt myself. I'll just be like, no, it's like, no, this person doesn't feel this way. I was like, maybe they do. Maybe I'm not good enough, this, that, and the other. And I was like, I have to come back to reality. And I have to understand that there's more to life than just like, it's like not everybody's emotion revolves around me. I was like,
right.
it's me. Like it's my own emotions that I have to be able to control. It's like, it's my thoughts. It's intrusive, and essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, not to be pessimistic, but something that you kind of learn over the years from when you're a teenager up to you're like a young adult is that you feel like everyone cares about you, or if you feel like everything you do, you kind of like think that everyone else is going to notice, right? But at the end of the day, everyone's kind of worried about themselves in their own sense, like trying to progress themselves. Not saying they don't care about you, but like you're in your head so much thinking about other people's opinions so much that you think everyone's going to notice these small changes or mistakes that you make. But at the end of the day, everyone's fucking up. They're worrying about themselves and trying to better themselves. So I know where you're coming from with that for sure. Connor and GT, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but that's
Dude,
just
I
my
got
own.
something with that, man. Like, cause I was in your situation as well, dude, and I got to a point where I got sick of it.
Yeah.
And cause, dude, at the end of the day, life is there's a literal board game called life. It's a real game. And it's decisions and paths you go down. And guess what? There's pros and cons to everything. It's not going to be a fairy tale like I said earlier. But basically, I connected with that a lot, dude. But, I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, finding, your inner zen with yourself and what you're doing and being at peace with yourself, because you can't be at war with yourself mentally. That'll take a toll on all facets of life, not just what's going on right now, future. So yeah, man, just positive, affirmation for yourself and positive thoughts, and surround yourself with good people. Obviously, you picked two pretty good people. I mean, I think they're pretty good people. So, but yeah, man, just at the end of the day, man, your game.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna add, Jerrid, I totally get what you're going through with the self-doubt, you versus you thing. That's been my whole life. That's been my whole you versus you problem ever since I was like got into puberty. And you start having, you mentioned intrusive thoughts. That's one of my questions had to do with that. You assign so much meaning to thoughts that like you think actually mean something, even though if you know they aren't true, you still hear the thought, and so you still think it means something. Then you play mind games with yourself, like sometimes over and over again, especially when it's about something that you don't want to think about. And especially when it has to do with like you trying to make a change, like you'll hear your brain go like, nah, you can't fucking do that. Or you're not good enough for that. It's a constant battle, and like almost constantly talking to yourself to be like, hey, let's be nicer and go, I can do this. Like I have to look at it a different way. Cause if I just sit in that, I'm not going to make any progress in my life. So I get what you're coming from, man. You're not the only one going through it, man.
Confidence, like, brother.
Along with like other people's opinion with what Tanner brought up, I was like, one very important aspect to that is my parents. I would always think about what my parents thought about me. I was like, every move, especially since my dad's job and everything, I knew that I had to do everything right. I had to do this. I had to do that. So it was the mentality that I went through as a kid, and it just always stuck with me. So it's like now that I'm on my own, I've had to obviously face my own battles. I don't go to my friends that much anymore for when I'm going through emotions, I guess I can say. I usually keep it in. It's not good because it builds up and then it lets loose. But it's so I can face the problem myself and I can fix it in some type of way. And then when it happens again, I know how to fix it.
You said Jerrid, real quick, because this is something I thought about. You said you always like try to basically almost satisfy your dad to approve of everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and you said, I had to get this right. I had to get this right. I had to get this right. What if you were getting it right because something might have happened? What if your dad, because to be a man and to grow up, you're going to face obstacles and you're going to face things that you don't want to face up, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of
the day, it was just, I was like, I've heard my dad say 3 times that he was proud of me. The first time he said it is when I graduated basic training. And that kind of kickstarted me to do better. And then the second time was when I moved out to Oklahoma, which wasn't the best time, but that was the second time he said, I'm proud of you. And then the third time he said, I'm proud of you is when I got this new job up in Virginia. So I was like, I know I'm doing something right. I don't really think about it anymore.
Well, Jerrid, before we kind of get off track of what you were saying a few minutes ago, because I feel like it's really important. It ties into my following question is, why do you think people in their 20s beat themselves up so much? You know, you're talking about your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, what do you think causes people in their 20s to beat themselves up? Or what do you think society has to do with that kind of mentality? Because clearly, even between the four of us, we've said that all four of us have suffered in some way, whether it's like self-doubt or, you know, beating themselves up in some shape or form. So why do you think that is?
I can definitely say, like, without a doubt, that social media definitely plays a big part. And obviously it's been said in previous episodes, but social media, I was like, you see this person got a new car. I was like, you know, I want a new car. Beating yourself up over somebody else. Don't worry about other people. Like, this is, at the end of the day, it's you. Even if you're in a relationship, it's still you at the end of the day. Yeah. I was like, you have to find a way to better yourself. And it's not always going to be, I bought a house, I bought a car. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's, you know, as life goes on, you're always improving yourself in one way or another, but you have to have the will to do it.
I'll also add to that we kind of grew up, and I've also said this several times through a podcast, and I stand by it, is the fact that we grew up where society, social media, technology, if we want something, we could get it right then and there. And we were so used to, you know, at the tip of our fingers, knowing anything that we want, or just in general, having the ability to get something shipped to our house overnight or within 2 days. Just like that kind of shit adds up to the mental point where if we feel like we're losing the battles against ourselves, or maybe we are, let's say, comparing ourselves to others, and we're not at the point where we want to be, we beat ourselves up because we're so used to having instantaneous success or instantaneous satisfaction that a lot of the goals that we set for ourselves can be unrealistic within a time frame. You know, maybe not unrealistic in general, but the time that we want to accomplish this goal may be, you know, too narrow of a time window or something like that. So I feel like social media, and definitely the society upbringing of having the ability to have anything when we want it kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You actually said that in the last podcast, because I was actually re-listening to that one today.
Yeah.
And
right on, dude. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I hate to repeat myself, but it honestly relates to a lot of different topics, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, also, I will bring this up, the hot take thing. I was like, how GT said it's too cold, everything like that.
Sir.
You can't wear shorts. You can't wear short sleeve. I was like, you want to know what? That's all a mental thing. I was like, you want to know what I wore to the gym today? You want to know what I wore to the gym today? I wore a t-shirt.
Let's do hot take right now. So.
No. Everyone shut the fuck up. Let me just, all right, because this is the first time I'm ever talking to this guy. All right, let me tell you something. When you're in a damn gym, what do they put it at, huh? All that body heat up in that gym. First,
they have it at like 68.
Bro, body heat, dog. You know that.
It's an open space. They have like a 35-foot ceiling.
You're working out. Your body is going, right? You're not standing in place underneath a air vent. I know you're not. Right?
Well, I'm not. But it doesn't matter. Like,
this hot take is getting.
It doesn't matter because it was like,
it's getting out of hand.
You want to know? I went to the grocery store afterwards, and I went grocery shopping in short sleeves, shorts, and slides.
You're going to be sick in about 2 days.
No, I'm not. Just wanted to bring that up real quick.
Yeah,
well,
funny.
Jerrid,
I like that. See, that's why.
That's so funny.
That is funny, bro. I like your answer, man. I don't know if Connor and GT had anything else to add between you and I.
I was going to let Connor go.
Yeah, I just had a little something too, and we brought it up in previous episodes, but it's also like social media, we see a picture perfect like vision and image of who people are, that we don't see like their constant mental battles that they might have with themselves and the steps that they took to actually get there. We talked about the journey and the destination. We see a glorified version of the destination, and they can say, oh, I did this, but like we didn't actually see that happen. They could be lying, not like lying, but like they could be exaggerating how much effort they put in it, or they could be grossly underestimating how much stuff they actually had to do on a day-to-day mental basis with themselves to get over those things. So social media messes with you because it changes your expectations of what you have for yourself. It's kind of like Jerrid said, where you're having a you versus you in somebody else's POV, but not everybody's in the same shoes. You have to have a you versus you in your own point of view, because
That's right.
you start from where you are. You don't start from where everybody else is. You have the same amount of time as everybody else, and you can make yourself that way, but it doesn't mean you started from where they were. They could have had an inheritance of like $100,000. Some of these famous like Instagrammers and these, famous gaming personalities, for example, we have no idea how they started.
We all start from somewhere, and it's not about the destination. It's about the journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it nice and short. I've said it multiple times in podcasts. Social media is all about how you use it, for good or for bad. And that goes for anybody and everybody. And people get too caught up in it because they think that Instagram is to be like a specific way, when Instagram can be however people want to take it or put it. Just like Tanner said, Tanner said this in one of like many podcasts ago, was how people, it's like the highlights of people's life, which in turns, great, like you get happy for someone, but then again, there's those people.
Yeah.
So just nice, short, and simple. It's how you use it and how you perceive it. So
for sure. Those were the two questions I really wanted to ask you, Jerrid. So I'm going to turn it over to one of the other guys to go ahead and ask their two questions for you.
Sure, I'll go. So I always like talking about, where we started from and how much progress we've made to our 20s with a lot of the questions that I come up with. And one of mine was, Jerrid, how has your self-talk changed from when you were younger, maybe even from before you hit puberty, for example, or in high school or whatever, to your 20s now? Like what's the difference, and what are some like things that you say to yourself that are different from then?
I can definitely say that when I was younger, it was just, I was like, I'm going to do this. And my conscience would be like, no, let's not do that. I wouldn't really think about any of the consequences. I'll admit it. Like, I was a liar when I was younger. So I would always lie to my parents to try and get out of trouble. And as I grew up, I learned, I was like, okay, there's consequences to everything. And then I would constantly go through that battle. Is this worth it? Do I really want to do this? How is this going to improve myself? Yeah. Just these constant questions of, it's something to better me, to become a better me. And it definitely changed, I would say, when I was like about 15, 16, going into high school, because I was like new environment, bigger school. Yeah. And then junior year, they added Squeezed. And I was like, there was so much going on at that point. That is when it really took a toll on me.
Okay. Wait, what's Squeezed real quick?
Sequoia East. My bad. That's what
they took the old middle school.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah, they took
I
the
was
old middle school.
so confused for a second.
I've never heard it.
I was like, my man,
like
hold on. We're going to have an E by our podcast. What in the world?
Yes, sir. They converted the old middle school because they built a new school for the middle school. So they converted the old middle school as like a part 2 campus of the high school, because our high school was getting so many students, but it was so small that they had to have more space for classes. So
for people who don't know, bigger middle school to also hold 6th graders.
Right. It's fucking crazy, dude. The place is growing like crazy, but
that's awesome.
I'm telling you, dude, everyone's moving in around here. But, I've been telling y'all.
It definitely changed in how I think about consequences and how I think it's going to better myself.
Okay, that makes sense.
When I was younger, I didn't really care about any of that. I was just living as a kid.
Lives in as exactly like you don't think about those things when you grow up. You realize like you have all these responsibilities that you have to start to think about, and then like you start to figure out what your priorities are. You probably figured out as you started taking on more responsibility. Like you mentioned, you do stuff for your parents a lot now, and like that's where a lot of maybe your validation with some things has come from. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
Because I was like,
quick thing on that after you're done.
I pay rent now. I pay my own phone bill. I buy my own phones. I have my own car insurance. I was like, everything is on me. And I was like, especially my mentality of budgeting. Because when I would get like a $20 allowance every week, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna spend this money. I was like, new Call of Duty game came out and I'm just like, oh dang, I don't have enough money. What the fuck do I do? So I was definitely is like budgeting is a big part of it now today.
Yeah.
Just making like more responsible decisions. What did you have to add, GT?
I was gonna say, so I totally agree with what you were talking about. I thought you might have gone in the way of, and I wanted to bring it up, of how when we were talking before the podcast, we all had glow ups, right? And you were trying to satisfy people and satisfy your parents at any point, but because I saw that photo, trust me, man, we all have been there. Was that at any point where maybe this same question that Connor is given to you, could it have gone in that way? Like, what's your take on that?
That was me every day. I was always goofy, always doing like stupid shit. And I was like, it got to a point as I grew older, it definitely played a part. I know when to act professional. I know when to like fun, act goofy and everything. And when I'm in my home, I can just, like, nobody cares. I was like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I could walk outside of this room with just my underwear on. Nobody would give a shit. I wouldn't give a shit if they thought it's anything.
There it
Boundaries
is.
change too.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Boundaries with yourself change. That's interesting.
I was like, obviously, I still respect boundaries. Like, if I were to get a girlfriend or anything, I would respect their boundaries at first. I was like, there's levels to that.
Okay.
That's awesome. Tanner, did you have anything you wanted to add, man?
No, man. I honestly, what you guys said was pretty much exactly what I was gonna add. So if you want to hit him up with your next question.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but you know, we were here and now we're here. You versus you is a constant daily thing, and so because it's constant and it's daily, especially for me, I've learned to tell myself like phrases and learn to tell myself simple things over and over again so that it's more effective. And if I'm getting lost in my head and my anxiety or whatever, I can latch onto these simple things. So for you, Jerrid, do you have any simple, effective phrases that you repeat to yourself when you're going through something like that you can hold on to?
I do have a couple. At the gym, I'll always put it in my personal trainer's words, or it's like his voice, but it's like, what's stopping you? What's stopping you from doing more? What's stopping you from being better? I'm going to go into like reasons with all of my phrases, but it's going to be a quick, short reason.
Sure.
Having a personal trainer, he's not just there for like your physical health, but also like your mental health, your emotional and spiritual. Having a personal trainer and it was making a different lifestyle, that is definitely like how I feel better. Just having a new lifestyle change from feeling like a bum to actually going to the gym and doing something and being what I want to be.
Yeah.
Another phrase is from my dad is, this too shall pass. So no matter what I go through, I was like, you know, it could be heartbreak. It could be passing away of family or something. This too shall pass. It's okay to mourn now. Do this. Get past it. Because that's a constant thing with you versus you. I will constantly be telling myself, I was like, the self-doubt, self-worth, and everything. Like my dad saying that phrase, it has definitely brought light to like a better side of me. Because it kind of released some of like the emotional stress, the mental stress I've been going through. I have depression, but it's not like it used to be. And I was like, with my dad saying this too shall pass, that definitely lifted a lot of things. So it's like everything I go to now, that is one thing I'll tell myself, this too shall pass. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So
Really like that. Those are very simple. I like them.
it's
Good messages.
It'll pass. Anything passes. I'll say you just have to give it time.
My mom taught me one that I still think of like to this day that kind of relates to that, and it's time heals even the greatest of wounds. So that one has always helped me. You know, I talk about my breakup all the time on this podcast that I've been dealing with this whole year, and she was right. I mean, it was obviously so much more difficult to deal with right at the beginning, and of course, I ran away from dealing with it for a while. And then when I confronted it, it helped, but it still didn't feel like everything was completely resolved. And I had too high of an expectation for things to be just done and like, oh, I'm moving past it. But it's almost been a year. It's a month from now, it'll be a year. And like, it feels so much better than it did last month, the month before that. So when you said that reminded me of that quote.
Yeah. I definitely went through my breakup a little over a year now.
Wow.
So
Look where we are now, man.
doing much better.
Much better. Yep.
Let's go.
If
Let's
that's
go.
what gets you through, bro. That's what gets you through, bro.
That's
Always.
awesome.
Like we said last podcast, the gym. Another hot take: the gym, really, you can be yourself, do your own thing. Yeah, there
The
might people
demon
be
comes
judging
out.
there. The demon really does. The demon will stop you and try to stop you sometimes. You got to find it within yourself to push yourself through. That's
Mhm.
all mental and the reaffirmation of yourself.
Yep.
For me, this topic actually speaks a lot to me because honestly, one of my phrases is you versus you. You know, it's you versus you. It's you versus the person that's staring back at you in the mirror, your reflection. A lot of the battles that you face, you know, I would like to think 75% of the battles I face, it's because of my own mentality and me doubting myself or my own mental struggles or the intrusive thoughts that come into my head. You know, a lot of the times I feel like there's so many more external factors or external barriers, but really when I boil it down, a lot of the problems that I will have or things I need to overcome is just me versus me, you know, you versus you. So the topic of this podcast speaks a lot to me.
Dude,
Yeah.
I was so excited for this one because, Jerrid, I'm right there with you. Just when you say this time, like, this too shall pass, dude, I can't tell you how many times, like, I always would get so caught up. And we said in an earlier podcast, it's up here, like, I get caught up, and it starts to overflow, and it's going through all over, right? Because this can only take, like, so much, and when you put too much up there, you can't give the right focus and attention to the proper things.
I would like to bring in actually a quote that I saw. It should be you versus you. You shouldn't care who is doing what, who bought which car or which phone, or how much money someone is making, or if someone's salary or earnings are higher than yours. You should not degrade yourself by comparing with others. Try to be a better version of your own self. Try to rise higher from the place where you were yesterday. It will always be you versus you.
Literally what I just said, bro. Like the you versus you concept is something that seems so cliche or so generic, but like it can apply to every single thing.
Yep.
In terms of your goals or your mentality or any, like, you versus you is just such a huge thing that people just don't necessarily prioritize or really truly think about, because that's what a lot of the daily struggles for people in their 20s is.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for sure, I love that quote. That's fantastic.
That's a great quote.
Could go on forever on that one, but we got more to go.
That's what I'm saying. GT, hit us with your 2 questions for Jerrid.
Oh, man, here we go. You know, I think we've already gone over why do some people, especially in their 20s, compare themselves to others when life is really about someone's own game of life. But and for you, Jerrid, you said you compared briefly earlier, and I'm sure all 4 of us on here can be very honest and own up to it. We've compared at some point. So, but for you personally, you said it out loud, and I would really like to see, because I did this exact same thing.
Yeah. I was definitely comparing myself. I'm trying to think of someone's name. It's not like nobody we went to school with. No, it's nobody we went to school with. Like, it's someone famous. Yeah, it's someone famous. But I was like, I would always look at their like Instagram posts and everything, and I'd be like, oh, they have this car. I really want that car. And I was like, damn, am I just like not good enough? You know, just think about that, not making enough money. I would look at whenever I would watch Twitch, I would be like, I want to be a streamer. I just need to start streaming. Doesn't matter if I don't get any viewers or not. But when I would start streaming and I'd get like 1, 2, 5, 10 viewers, I was like, all right, I'm doing something. I'm making it big. And then that next week I'd get 3 views total. And I'd be like, damn, I'm just not worth Twitch. I guess that's it. There was always something in the back of my mind. I was like, keep going. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. The bad things always pass. So I definitely compared myself to almost every single person, especially, I'm going to admit this, my close friend circle, I would definitely compare myself to them. Like, when senior year of high school, one topic would be our cars. One of my friends had a 1984 Ford F-150 named Old Red. Somebody had a 2001 Ram that was named Bertha.
That's
This
awesome.
is
Nice.
good.
Yeah, I was like, I'd always compare those cars, and I'd be like, damn, like those are good cars. And I'm stuck with a '99 Honda CRV named Kathy. So
Hey, Kathy, I bet Kathy got good gas.
Shout out to Kathy, man. Shout out to
Kathy.
Kathy.
Kathy's a real one.
I was like, I'd always compare myself. I need a new car. I need this. I need that.
yeah.
I don't need it. I don't, because I got a perfectly working car. I shouldn't be jealous, because that brought a lot of jealousy to my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So-
you said compare stuff, especially with, your friend group. You said you compared with them, but also you said with the famous people in Twitch, right? And I think just people don't see the process, like we said earlier, right? People only see the end result, and they think, oh, they got right there, right? But no one ever saw that little build up, which is why when we did the consistency is key, right? You build up, and like Connor said, or Tanner said, right? You gain 2 or you gain 3, you lose 1. Guess what? You're still net profiting 2, right? So you're still getting better. So, and eventually you're gonna get there. So, but it's frustrating. It's very, tough when you got up here maybe on this day, and the next day you're down here, and you're like, that don't make sense.
Yeah.
But it's just the process.
And I was like, that's also with like jobs. To take 3 steps up, take a step back. Because I was like, with the track that I'm going, year and a half, I'll be a top hand, maybe even a foreman. When you step up to a position, you gotta take a step back so you know how to do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
but you go to the side, I think people, they think just big, bad, and tough, and try to, their ego gets in the way, which that could be another like future podcast, Tanner, about ego and letting go of ego and putting it to the side when needed. But yeah, I
Leave your
think
ego at
messes
home.
with it too, man.
It's you
Exactly.
versus
Leave
you.
that away.
Yep.
Exactly. See?
You get it, bro. You get it. Connor, do you have anything to add to that before GT asks his second question?
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. I like the whole thing that you brought up about like your friends, because the whole you versus you thing, of course, when you get really close to people or your friends or family or whatever, you can't help but compare yourself a little bit. And when you find people who are, not saying that the people you were talking to about your cars are obsessed with status, but maybe, when you do have friends that are bad influences, I think all of us have been there. It's like that also leads to that whole thing where you're comparing yourself, but again, like, you don't know exactly what their position is, and you should be with people who are supportive of you regardless of what your situation is. That's another thing too. Like, you versus you is easier to talk about and easier to work on when you have people who support you regardless of what you're going through, who can just be there for you, who are not there expecting any kind of status out of you. That means that they're not there for you. They're there for where maybe you're going to go, or
Personal
like whatever
gain.
your money is, or their own personal gain, what they can get out of you. But if they're there for you, you know. So
Yeah.
I like that you brought up your friends, because it's easy to get lost in your head so much. So then you'll look to other people, and then you're like, oh, but they're not a good influence on me. So
Yeah.
Definitely had to drop a few people because they weren't bettering me in any way. 'Cause that's everybody I go through. Obviously, I was like, God brought them into my life for a reason. I was like, what is that reason? Most of the people I was at my job, I was like, they give me really good life advice. That's the reason. So
that's cool.
Good
Not
for you,
everybody
man.
that comes with you can go with you, Jerrid.
Exactly.
Said that
That's
on
right.
another one.
That's
Mhm.
right. GT, what's the next question you got for Jerrid here?
So next one is, what's the hardest thing someone is faced with when being in a you versus you situation? Or you can go off that, and maybe what's something that is the, biggest thing that you're faced when it comes to you versus you. You said self-doubt. Would you say that for just almost most things? Or would it be maybe a mix of something else within that?
I would say it'd be a mix. Self-doubt, self-worth. I know that was covered in the previous podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Those two are like the main ones. There's subcategories in the you versus you. Just mentality in itself, your subconscious and your conscious, there's certain things that just tick. And to overcome them, it's a battle every day, because your subconscious makes 95% of the decisions. I was like, your conscious is there to talk to you, just because you're lonely sometimes. But But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely when facing you versus you, like it's an everyday thing. And mine is self-doubt and self-worth. Sometimes I don't think I'm worthy to be with this person. Sometimes I don't think I'm worthy to be a good friend, or especially to my parents when I was younger. That was one thing. I didn't think I was worthy enough. But look at me now, and I'm the golden child.
Oh, hey,
There
don't be on
he
that
is.
light skin
No,
stuff. That's
Jared.
how I feel.
There he is.
Exactly.
Jared, if I can quickly add to what you just said about self-worth, I think, and even what GT just mentioned, self-worth and ego, it's a balancing of scales, right? You don't want to have too big of ego and think your self-worth is above everyone else, right? But you don't want to have a shit ego and be in your own head and feel like you're worthless, and then your self-worth goes down to the ground. So I feel like in terms of the battle of you versus you, something that I personally experienced was being confident in my ability and knowing what my worth is, right? I know what I deserve. I know what my worth is, whether you take it into a relationship, my job, how I'm treated with or how others treat me, I should say. I know what my self-worth is, but I'm not going to let my ego go through the roof and feel like I'm on a pedestal and above everyone else. So for me personally, that's a battle of trying to find, especially as a young man into society, you're told that you have to be a provider. You're told that you have to be the one that makes the big decisions, or at least that's the societal norm, versus maybe how women are taught to kind of be more expressive with their emotions, or not saying that's correct or wrong, but just in terms of being a young man, learning how to know what your self-worth is, but also kind of having to bottle that up, but also not letting your ego get too high.
That
It's something that,
balance.
Yeah.
everything kind of together, it's easier said than done, and you're never perfect. But yeah, man, overall, I feel like that's my personal biggest battle. I don't know if you guys feel that same way. And I wasn't trying to be sexist or like direct with what I said. I feel like it's mostly correct, and I don't want to be a person who generalizes,
No, I don't
But-
think you generalize. I think also, like, within what you said, it's the balancing of ego and, like, putting that aside. And also, it's not just men, right?
Yeah.
While society try to look at men as, like, the people that have to be strong, women can be weak. Where now, dude, no, like, everyone's equal, and then everyone's pushing
right.
for stuff, right? So it's
Yeah.
always changing, and it's never the same between anybody and everybody in this world. Like I said earlier, there's 7-8 billion people in this world, all different characteristics, personalities, sense of humor, everything. You're never gonna have the exact same person. I promise you, if you put them through a million tests along that line, something's not going to be the same. So,
For sure.
but it's definitely everyone has to balance specifics because no one is going to be in the exact same situation.
And I just want
For sure.
to say that I do keep my ego in check when it comes to my family and my self-worth, because my brother would beat the fuck out of me.
I'm glad. I was about to say.
Yeah.
That's what your brother's for. That's what brothers are for, bro.
That family reunion is going to be fun, big man.
That's so
cool.
funny.
Jerrid, before we kind of go over to time here, I really want you to ask us. I know you have several questions lined up for us, but I want you to pick 2 or 3 that you feel like are going to be beneficial for Connor, GT, and I. Yeah, man.
All right. I did have, I'm not going to say I had all outside, because all these are mine except for one. And I'm going to read the one that she sent me.
Yeah.
What is
All
the
right.
best way to clear your mind against fighting your own mind and compromising with your own mind?
Whoa.
Yeah.
I want you to repeat that question.
Yeah, no, dude, I
want you to repeat that question.
I got so much going through my head after that.
Yeah.
What is the best way to clear your mind against fighting your own mind and compromising with your own mind?
Dude.
I mean, I there's so many ways you could approach this. Wow. I think one thing that you can do is to try to take an outside look and take yourself out of your own head. That's the first thing that you can do, because what we tend to do, at least what I tend to do when I have like my anxiety, I think I have to think about it more. I think I have to come up with a solution. I think I have to address it immediately, because if I don't, then it's just going to ruminate, and then it's just going to go over and over and over. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to nip it in the bud there. Otherwise, I'm going to be thinking about it all day. Of like, if I'm stressed out about like, I don't know, like messing up something at work that I did the day before and I don't forgive myself for that. And I just constantly think about how bad I messed up, for example. Right. So like taking myself out of my mind by meditating and breathing and using breathing techniques and using grounding techniques. I have like 3 grounding techniques that I use that have been tremendously helpful for me to take myself out of my brain and then to like jump back in and go like, okay, what was I overthinking? What do I actually need to think about? What's important? What's not important?
Yeah.
So like my advice would be first step is like, if it feels like everything's crazy, get out of your mind first and like take a step back, and you don't have to solve it right at that moment. Like you really don't have to.
I like that. GT? Banner?
Well, I just want to say to what Connor said about the outside POV, something that I've done with a lot of, I'll say, bigger decisions or bigger milestones within the last few years is physically writing down like a pros and cons. Or once again, the outside POV of thinking, okay, what should I do? Why is this a good decision? Maybe why is option B also a good decision? Is there more pros or cons for one of these things? And then on top of that, I will say a big thing for me to be at peace of my mind is I have so many thoughts going on, but how many of those things do I actually act on? So stop thinking and just do. Now, granted, if it's a shit decision or something that you know isn't healthy or beneficial for you, then don't do it. But I feel like a lot of people who are so anxious or not at peace with themselves or feel like their self-worth is at an all-time low is because they have all these thoughts and all this potential, but are they acting on it? Right? And the big battle is thinking like, oh man, I can't do that because I'm not going to be fit in the gym because I weigh 300 pounds and I eat like garbage. Well, guess what? Stop thinking that you're going to stay 300 pounds and eat like garbage and start eating healthier and start actually going to the gym, or take action in order to achieve these thoughts that you want to fulfill. I mean, it's easier said than done, but I feel like a lot of people just have this mentality of, I can't do this, I can't do that. But how do you know if you don't try? You know, the worst thing you can do is fail, but at least then you know, instead of the thought of, oh, what could I have done or what could I have achieved? And Gigi just left because his internet's garbage. I mean, what the every fucking time.
I can actually relate to that because
does that make sense? And I'm not trying to be a dick, by the way. Okay, okay.
It makes perfect sense because I went through that. I was like all throughout high school, and now obviously I graduated high school, had a month of summer, and I shipped out to basic training. I broke my leg at the beginning of basic training. Went all throughout basic training. It was until the final PT test that I was like, I really started feeling the pain because I would just get shin splints and everything throughout basic training. I was like, think nothing of it. So it's just a shin splint.
Right.
And final PT test came around, like kind of like twisted my ankle in a pothole, and that kind of like released all of that tension. I'm not going to give up. I told myself, because I was like, it was so hard to walk. Like I couldn't really even stand straight up. And I was I told myself, I'm not going to quit. This is the biggest you versus you battle that I had. Because I had 2 options. I could go the next day to get it fixed, or I could buckle down, man up, and complete the Forge, which is a 4-day, 48-mile event. I buckled down and I finished the Forge.
Good for you, man. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
That's the biggest you versus you, because I was constantly in denial. I was like, it's not broken. It's just a muscle. I tore a muscle. That's it. I was like, nah. I was like, my leg, I couldn't even like doing this. I couldn't, my leg was huge.
Wow.
Well, I was going to add real quick on Tanner's thing, the part about where like you think that people who are super anxious, that they have all these things that they don't act on and they just need to act on them. You also find that it's not as scary in real life as you think it's going to be in your head sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it takes away, it's almost like it takes away the fear. And that's where a lot of like you versus you comes from, is the fear of doing something. At least in my experience, it's like the fear of making a decision or the fear of not making a decision. It's you actually do, or just get out of your head and just do that. You find that maybe real life's not actually as scary as you're overthinking in your head.
Yeah. I definitely shut the bitch up in basic training.
Yes, you did.
Definitely
Well, sir.
And I just want to say maybe we're taking a macho man perspective of that, and it may not be beneficial for everyone, or may not work for everyone, and especially maybe our perspective on it will be different than maybe some female listeners. So I'm not saying that what Connor and I mentioned is a solution to anxiety, and we're not dismissing how much anxiety can affect you on a day-to-day basis. But for me personally, and apparently for Connor as well, that's something that him and I have done in order to kind of battle our own personal anxiety, and we have seen results. So I'm not saying it'll work for everyone, but it's something that has benefited me, and Connor has just mentioned it benefited him. So I just wanted to disclaimer there, so that way we don't get canceled.
Yeah, it's not. This isn't male.
It's not
universal fix.
Yeah.
There's no one approach for everything in life.
Right.
Real quick, because I was gone. So to give you my side, Jerrid, for when you're battling yourself,
fighting and compromising, and you're trying to satisfy both. And yeah, you're trying to clear your head and everything. Come back to reality, really.
I tend to maybe just find a spot where I can just take a deep breath, and then those deep breaths, honestly, and I know that's the most just take a deep breath cliche or most simple thing, but honest to God, when you can use it like a breath properly, that's life. You live because you breathe. You don't breathe for a certain amount of time. We're not going to go there, right? But having a sense of purpose with what you do, and just kind of just breathing and knowing that, like you said, this too shall pass.
I definitely relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. When she asked me, it's like, dang, that made me think. It is a way. I've done the same thing. I'm not going to say it's a coping mechanism, but I was like, this is what helped me. Watching TV. I did start getting into meditation. My brother's girlfriend got me into yoga, and
I do that all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I was like, video games too. I was like, because it is.
You can turn off your brain.
It is the biggest.
For sure, man. Well, shout out to She real quick. I just want to say shout out to She.
She me into yoga and everything. She's so cool too. She's a vegan and everything. Oh my God, she's awesome.
Oh, good for you, man.
I can't. She's gonna be a sister-in-law too. I was like, yeah.
Ooh, good for her.
Shout out to She.
Shout out to She. Well, I was about to say too. I was gonna plug one of the grounding techniques that I used. I actually think that this could help, because this helps me when it feels like I got no solution in a you versus you battle. So it's basically you pay attention to all your five senses, and you activate your five senses by focusing on three things with each sense. You start with your eyes, five things. So you start with your eyes. You literally say out loud five things that you can see. And then you walk around, you find a space to do it to. You find a quiet space. Then you go to smell. Five things you can smell. You name the smell. And then you do taste, five things that you think that you could taste, or five things that you could theoretically taste, five things that you can touch, and five things you can hear. And what it does is it literally places your thinking more forward, and it takes you out of your emotions and places more of your thinking. I think it's your frontal lobe. So it makes it easier to peer through your anxiety, and makes it easier to ground yourself when you do that. I recommend that technique for anybody. It's worked for me. It works for kids in my pre-K when I explain it to them. I know it seems like a lot, but it only takes me 5 minutes usually to get through it. And I swear, I don't even remember what I was anxious about, or I don't even remember what I was arguing with myself about.
That grounding technique is not sponsored.
That's a lot, dude.
So
that grounding technique is sponsored.
It's not.
You got we got money for it right before the podcast. Do you not remember?
That's false.
That's
Dude,
not
we're
true.
gonna get our sponsor.
Jerrid, what's your second question?
Thank you.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of wanted to go off of that real quick, just because if I'm gonna be grounded, say I'm going through something on the tower. I was like, I got the ground. I was like, okay, I can see trees, I can see cows, I can see cotton, I can see steel, and I can see antennas. What can I smell? I can smell bird shit.
Like, it's funny, but then you start like laughing and you're like, oh wait, I'm not even anxious. I'm not even overthinking this shit. I'm just like good now because I'm just like actually focused on other shit.
You make it a fun time. Exactly. That's the whole
You just
thing.
like trick your brain into like thinking about other stuff.
All right. Oh, which one do I want to do? Oh, Lord. All right. We answered actually most of these questions are similar to the ones that y'all wrote.
Okay.
All right. And you versus you. What are ways that you personally improve yourself to be the better you of yesterday? Because it's always you versus you.
Build on what I had, but have a program that specifically works for me, and go through what I have to do to figure out what's best and what's not. And when I find out what's not best for me, don't even put it around. Don't even get it around. That way, it's not even the temptation. Making sure to get myself away from that and really just be consistent and pay attention, because attention takes time, effort, blood, switches, whatever you want to put into it. Put into the right things. Don't put into any of the distractions or temptations or anything that's going to take you away from what you want to do, your purpose, and have intent and be about it. That's me personally.
I like that. Be about it.
Yeah, be about it, bro. Like I said, stop thinking about it and just do it. Well, I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? I just said in a past podcast, you don't know success until you experience failure, right? You make mistakes, you learn, you adjust, and then you go about it again. And if you're successful, well, guess what? You found a great formula. But if not, you go through it, you adjust, you learn, you try again. And I feel like on top of that is your intent, right? You can say all these things and say you want to do this, this, and this, but are you actively doing it? What's your true intentions? I think something else that GT Connor and I admitted is journaling, kind of writing down your day to day and what you actually did to improve yourself, or things that you maybe think that you could improve upon, and kind of just actively judging yourself, not in a negative way necessarily, but an outside POV, and saying, what was my goal 3 months ago? And then within those 3 months, have I actually done things that have pushed me closer to this goal or pushed me closer to where I wanted to be? If not, what can I do differently to adjust and get more towards that goal? So I think just being aware of yourself, not being complacent, and kind of sitting back and looking at yourself in a neutral way, and not being biased and thinking that either you're perfect or thinking that you're a piece of shit. Find that middle ground.
Going off of people being complacent and everything, I feel like I'm not going to say people, some persons, they have the intent to be comfortable. I'm not saying, they're not comfortable with themselves, but they're comfortable with where they're at. They don't like change, so they're comfortable with where they're at. We're in our 20s. I was like, the 20s, you're out there to live. Go experience new things, like travel, like cross country, go to a different country, go on a cruise. Don't be comfortable with where you're at right now. Yeah. You can do that later in your 20s.
I think the question I would ask to people kind of going off of that, who maybe if they're listening to this, or maybe experiencing this, where they feel stagnant, they feel comfortable and they like it, but like maybe something inside them wants to change, or maybe something inside them envies all these other accomplishments that other people are making. My mom always taught me, another thing that she taught me was, a lot of the times people don't change until the pain of staying the same grows greater than the fear of what's going to happen when you try to make a change. So if you're in that situation where you feel so comfortable and so stagnant that you feel like you're lost, or you feel like you're not making any progress in your life, you should ask yourself that question. If you staying the same is so painful that like it's bigger than like your fear of what's going to happen when you try to make a change, and if it is bigger, then you need to make a change. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Goes back to what I said, man. Be about it, which is one of my phrases I didn't tell you earlier.
Be about it.
That's like a phrase. That's what I tell myself all the time, man. And that doesn't go for just about anything. That's about anyone and everyone in this world. You want something so bad, you want to do this, you want that, you want to say that, this. All right, be about it. Don't say it, because the more you say about it, the more people aren't going to believe you. Trust. So
Commit and trust the process.
Yep.
3
That's right,
words. It's plain and simple, but it's strong and powerful. Be about it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, gentlemen, I think we've covered a lot of great topics here. And I feel like all of us have had a great opportunity to kind of speak about the topic you versus you. So I will open the floor to each and single one of you for your closing thoughts. And then we are going to wrap up this episode. So Jerrid, the guest, I want you to start us off, baby. What are your closing thoughts?
I got something. Jerrid, hot take. What's our hot take on this podcast? And we ain't about to go off weather because, trust me, you ain't going to win that one.
We'll get away from weather. Let me get stick out of my mouth real quick.
All right.
Just for people who are listening, he actually said, "Let me get this dick out of my mouth."
I said
just
stick.
Yeah.
What's your hot take?
LED lights are the craze and will always be the craze now. Alexa, set the bear cave lights to purple.
Okay.
The bear cave.
Do you have your room as a name?
Yep.
What's the name? Did you say Bear Cave?
Yeah, because of my tattoo. And I was nicknamed Jer Bear.
like
Leslie Reese gave me the nickname Jer Bear my sophomore year.
Shout out to Leslie. Shout out to Leslie. Hope she's doing
Man,
okay.
all
I'll
these
talk to her.
Kathy, Leslie, man, all these women. Shout out to you.
That's an interesting take. I feel like it is to a certain degree. Like, it is for a certain vibe and ambiance. Like, for sure. I'll give you that much. It definitely... LED lights are definitely for a certain vibe, but I don't know. For me, like, am I going to be 40 years old and want my living room to have LEDs and shit in it?
All right, fine. You know what? I'll give you a better one because I have it in my
I was going
room.
to say, don't pull out.
Old Guava Berry brand rum is the best rum in the world. I don't care what any of you say. It is the best rum in the world.
Well, I've never had it actually.
I was about to say,
Hey, I'll give y'all
I've
a
had
shot.
some rum, but I haven't had it.
It's the best rum you'll ever have.
Well,
Is
about to
the
say, I like-
is
listen,
the podcast
I'm-
going to get canceled if I...
possibly. But you know what? It's okay because we're all 21 and older, right?
Yes, I am 21.
Yeah,
April
no.
12th, 2000.
Okay.
No.
So yeah, we're good. We're not doing anything illegal here. Now,
I'm
I don't know
20.
if you should take a shot right. Go for it.
I'm about to say,
I don't care. I've been drinking bourbon this whole time. I'm not going to
all
lie.
3 of us drank on a podcast and we posted it. So if we're not canceled by now, we're good.
I've been drinking bourbon. You're
We
good.
should have been canceled a while ago.
If anything,
honestly.
we honestly might get some more
It's
views.
fake. It's fake alcohol. The YouTube.
It's just water with food coloring.
Yeah, it's water with.
It's a seltzer, guys. We promise. I mean,
Well, shit.
I think LED lights will be around. Are you kidding me?
No, they'll be around.
I
They'll
think
be around.
LED lights. I think they'll absolutely be
I
around.
can also
The
change
craze?
each bulb too.
Dude, yeah, with how tech is
Ain't
going, with
no
how people
way.
build their computers now and how much bigger that's going to get in the future. No, dude, like, you should see some of these rigs and how they can change, like, every individual light with, like, a keyboard. When they press, like, a part of their keyboard, it changes something in their box. Like, no. Or in their
It's pretty
tower, their
badass.
box. Yeah, it's cool.
pretty
So,
badass.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, LED lights will just get bigger, in my opinion.
It's
Definitely.
All
because
right.
we're also getting more technological, so it's absolutely gonna get there.
Yeah.
Well,
He
damn.
changed. He's doing it right
Yeah,
now.
I'm
This
changing
month.
each
Yeah,
bulb.
yeah, you are.
Well, fellas, if we don't have any closing thoughts on the podcast, then we'll sign it off here. I feel like we talked about a good bit. There's Jerrid there with his LED lights. Jerrid, thank you so much for coming onto this episode, bro. It's been awesome catching up with you
Yeah,
and,
man.
Thank you for
and seeing
having
your
me
POV
on.
and everything.
Oh, of
Nice
course.
to meet you, big
It's been
man.
good talking to you, man.
It was nice
Absolutely.
meeting you, GT, and I really enjoyed this. It was a good time.
Hell
Good
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
man, we love that.
It's
Love-
always a
love
good
to hear
time. Always a good
Yeah.
time. Well, thanks for listening to all the podcasts, man. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the other 2 gentlemen here. So,
It does.
without further ado,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another episode of Let's Talk 20s. This episode talking about you versus you. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Happy Thanksgiving. Peace.